Welcome to Wickerson Studios. My name is Michael Wickerson, and I am now really just scripting in Visual Studio with C#. And what I've done here is I've taken my older scripts, where this was a script that I had put together out of a white paper from Warsaw on a series and range component. So if we take a look in there, you'll see that the writing of that's pretty interesting because it actually uses functions. So obviously I want to get using lists, I want to get using functions, and I want to write more complex and better scripts, but this is a great exercise to go through. I am going to do the add one each number because that's a nice little node that I'd like to have custom have. But if you look over here, you'll see I have a series and range component all in one, which is pretty nice because you can set your steps, your count, your domain ends, and your starts, and that will affect everything that you're actually doing right down to the decimal. A little bit of trickiness in there with decimals and integers and thingy start, steps, and stops and running those together, but I've always wanted my range and my series component together. And you'll also notice that there's a nice little icon on there. And that icon is being generated by another script that I'm very happy to say I'm using, which not a lot of people I think use right here. So let me get down there. Oh, it's this Screen-o-matic makes that difficult. Let's just click here and go down to this one. This is pretty cool because it's an aviary script that you come in, and I've written a little text in here. I've set -12 to 12 frame on it. I've taken that as a brep to shape, a shape into the composed drawing. You can see the sample of the little updated. You can update that little tiny drawing of where your thing is by moving this around. If you were to take the whole thing and shove it down here, but then you'd have to update it to where you had. I've actually have this work internalized in here, so I'm pretty happy with that. That I believe I've internalized the data, or it's still dependent on where that is. I've internalized the frame, so that's kind of nice that you can change and really get a nice little tiny bitmap for yourself that'll work. Then I'm drawing it out. I put on where I want the path to go, which goes directly into my drive, which is my project file in Visual Studio, and where it's baked, and then I'm moving it over when I need it, because every time I click this button, I'm making a BMP, and I don't want to add that to my resources like crazy. But you can see over here in Visual Studio that I actually have my BMP files coming in here as I bake them. And there's the first one, and then I'm also taking those over to properties, resources, and all the way down here, series range file bitmaps. And then I'm going into my main series and range component, which I've written. Had to write in the inputs, the outputs, and I wrote with the collecting of the variables and then fetching the inputs, and then I wrote the algorithms that will work with two different functions. One is making a code range, one is making a code series. So I'm excited that I'm bringing this together, and I'm doing this on my own, and I'm debugging it, even though it's taking me an hour to do stuff like this. And then I'm bringing in my bitmap icon and using my resources and series settings to make that bitmap load. And once again, what's nice about here is you can have this, and you can basically, every time you debug it, every time you rebuild it, you can then produce it, so long as it's succeeding. And then I'll just open it up when I hit play. I think I hit it. Maybe I should hit it again. And that will load up my Rhino file, which I just closed, so I could just rebuild that, even though I didn't really have to. This is nice because the whole thing opens, your Grasshopper opens, and you go right to that script that I'm compiling to make this work. So if this is something you're actually interested in, you'll see here, I might have, it should be open in Grasshopper. I just have to go over and get my Grasshopper open, and there it is. Yeah, all ready to go. That series component, all in one. It's working really well. It has its own bitmap. Everything's loading up as it is. And those are list basics because we're actually outputting lists. So I have to do a little bit different in the code and script. What's nice is these are compiled. These are plugin items that I may take when I figure out what are my favorite ones. I'm going to go into tree inputs and outputs. And of course, what I was working on earlier to learn all this was basic text-based, string-based hello documents, basic types, complex types, and basic operators. And I think I've got skills enough that I can start going into more complex scripts as I go, and I will keep processing the Warsaw things that I did. So you can see that here I still have the other one. I want to add one to each item, and then I'll go into some basic for each loops, because I think this is really the else if switches, the loops, the arrays, the lists, the methods, classes, and all these things are going to make Grasshopper so exciting. If I do go on to using something like Rhino Geometry of Raya ISA, that's going to do some fun stuff, but it's not really going to do anything that isn't already in Grasshopper vanilla, but I want to use that to practice, so I start making some really interesting components that take advantage of all the basic scripting and computational skills that coding will bring to this. It's kind of like working in Unity, which I'm interested in doing, but using scripting to jazz that up, just the same as Blender is using geometry scripts and things like that to jazz that up. So I hope you like it. The other things I have to show are basically the C# group page, which has grown quite a bit, 1,300 people. It's a private site, but it's where I'll be answering, and people are sharing files about C#, hopefully. In the Grasshopper node, but this is actually going to be C# in Visual Studio for Grasshopper and Rhino. I probably need to start a new site for that where I'll do live feeds. I'm hoping Suji will join, and Daniel. And then I also have my Patreon, which I just basically got all the files out there, some of the files out there, all the files out there. And then if you want to do consulting, like a half-an-hour consulting a week, then I do have a larger fee. But I'm not doing the freelance work where I'm just doing the consulting on that, so don't expect magic. You will get an awful lot of files if you took a look at some of the files that are in here, and then the initial GitHub files that are available to you just for the $3 membership. So I'm hoping to kind of fund a little bit so I can do some more work on this. And then my GitHub repo, I've got 46 of them. This is the one where I'm adding the C#. And I think that's what I'll do, is I will go into Patreon, go into Facebook group, and I think I will start a C# scripting in Visual Studio for Grasshopper Rhino page, and I'll do that right now, and let's see if anybody signs up. Could be really interesting. So thanks very much for watching. And that's it.